Ghost! Ghost! Ghost!
No one in the compound was able to sleep that night. Around 2:17 a.m., a woman in room 6 suddenly woke everyone up by shouting. She said she heard someone whisper her name right next to her ear, but when she turned, she did not see anyone. At the same time, a man in room 3 ran out of his room shouting, "Ghost! Ghost! Ghost!" He was panting heavily and pointing back towards his room. He said he saw someone standing in front of his door, but before he could blink, the person disappeared. While people were trying to calm him down, a newborn baby in room 8 started crying non-stop. That made everyone in the compound even more scared. But no one could understand what was really happening. And that was the same compound I moved into. So sit down tight while I tell you my story. The year I moved into that compound was one of the hardest years of my life. At that time, nothing was working for me. I had lost my job 3 months earlier. What started as "we are downsizing staffs" became my own problem when they handed me a letter and told me I was among those affected. I still remember how I forced myself to smile that day, even though my heart was breaking. Then I told myself I would get another job soon. But weeks passed, then months, and nothing came. The little money I had saved started going down little by little. Before I knew what was happening, I had already started borrowing from friends and telling them lies like, "I'm expecting payments," or "I have a deal coming soon." But deep down, I knew I was struggling badly. The place I was squatting was in my cousin's room. At first, she did not complain. She even told me to take my time. But as the days became weeks, I started noticing little things. If I drank water, she would ask, "Hope you would buy pure water on your way back." If I used her gas, she would say, "This gas is finishing too fast these days." If I stayed too long in the bedroom, she would knock. She wasn't wicked, she was just tired, and I understood her. One evening, she sat down beside me and cleared her throat. "Amara," she said softly, "you know I love you, but I think you should start looking for your own place." I looked at her and nodded. I understand. But that night I cried. Not loudly, just the kind of cry that stays inside your chest and makes breathing hard. So I started searching for an apartment. Every day, I would carry my small handbag, wear my slippers, and move from one street to another, asking agents for rooms. One said 250,000, another said 300,000. One even showed me a place and said I should pay commission first before inspection. I was tired. But one afternoon, while returning from another useless inspection, I met an old agent I had spoken to before. He called me from across the road. "Madam, please come." I crossed. "You said you need a room, abi?" "Yes," I replied. "There is one that is very affordable. It has good compound, quiet environment, steady water and light. If you are ready, I can show you now." Normally, I would have asked plenty questions, but that day I was too tired. "Let's go," I said. That was how he took me there. The compound was inside a narrow street, not too far from the main road. It was not one of those fine painted compounds that look fresh from outside. No, this one looked old. The walls had lost its color. The gate was strong but rusty, and the passage inside was a bit narrow. Still, I liked something about it. It was calm, not too noisy and dirty. The floor looked neat, and the compound was dry, no mess of any kind. No children running around carelessly. In fact, it looked more organized than many places I had seen. There were about 10 rooms arranged in 2 lines facing each other. At one end of the compound was the general kitchen. At the other end was the tap and the bedroom area. The toilet was outside too. But my agent told me something that made me happy. He said this your room gets small bedroom space inside. You can use buckets so that you won't stress yourself too much. That alone made me smile. Because anyone who has lived in a public compound knows that if your room has any small private advantage, hold it well. The room itself was not bad. It was not big, but it was okay for one person. One window and a small bedroom corner I could manage. The ceiling fan looked old, but it was there. I looked around and nodded. How much? I asked him. He told me. I won't lie, it was still painful, but it was cheaper than many others. Can I see the landlady? I asked. He pointed to a woman sitting near the entrance. She should be around her late 50s or maybe early 60s. She was dark, neat, and very composed. She wore a simple wrapper and blouse, but there was something about her face that made it hard to read her mood. She wasn't smiling. As we approached, the agent greeted her quickly. Ma, this is the lady for the room. She looked at me from head to toe, not in a rude way, but in a way that made me uncomfortable. Then she said, Do you want to take the room? Yes, ma, I replied. She kept looking at me for some seconds. Then she said something I did not understand. If you can stay here peacefully, you will enjoy this compound. I smiled politely. Yes, ma, I don't have trouble. She nodded slowly. That is good. The agent started praising the compound again. This woman no dey trouble person oo. Everybody here minds their business. Na peaceful compound be dis oo. The woman still did not smile. She just kept looking at me in that strange way. I should have paid attention to that look, but I did not. At that point, all I wanted was a roof over my head. Before I paid, I noticed something. Two women who were passing by slowed down to look at me. One of them was carrying a bowl, the other held a small child by the hand. They both looked at me for a moment, then at each other and kept walking. It was small, but it was noticeable. When I finished paying and the agent left, the landlady gave me my key and started telling me the rules of the compound. Don't bring visitors that will disturb others. If you want to fetch water, do it on time. Don't wash late at night. And once it's 10 p.m., gates will be locked. Ensure you keep your environment clean. And don't put food inside your room after cooking. I looked up at once. Sorry, ma. She repeated it. If you cook in the kitchen, keep your food in the cupboard there. Don't take it inside your room. That was the first thing that really struck me. I frowned immediately. Why, ma? She looked at me as if the answer was very simple. To keep the compound clean and to avoid rats. I don't understand, ma. She adjusted her wrapper. Just follow the rule, everybody does. That answer felt too strange to me. Because it did not make sense. If I cook my food, why can't I keep it in my room? And how is it anyone's business? But because I had just entered, I did not want to argue too much. Okay, ma, I said. She turned and started walking away. Then she stopped and looked back at me. Oh, one more thing. Around here, people don't ask too many questions. The more peaceful you are, the better for you. She walked away. And immediately, something inside me moved. That uneasiness you feel when someone says something that looks ordinary, but does not sound ordinary. Still, I pushed it aside. I told myself maybe she was just one of those street older women that like control. I entered my room and started arranging my things. My load wasn't much. It was just my small traveling bag, a bucket, my mattress, a few clothes, some foodstuff, and the one carton with plates, a knife and other small things. I arranged everything neatly, trying to make the room feel like somewhere I could rest. But as I was arranging those things, I kept hearing sounds like footsteps and voices, then sudden silence. At first, I didn't think much about it. I noticed it had become a pattern. Anytime I stepped outside my house, the compound would go strangely quiet for a few seconds. As soon as I went back inside, the murmuring would continue. I started feeling like they were talking about me. Around evening, I decided to step out and buy a few things before it got too late. As I locked my room, I noticed a woman sitting 2 rooms away from mine. She was not doing anything. She was just there sitting on a low stool, and her eyes were fixed on my door. Not on me, but on my door. The way she was looking at it made my skin crawl. I greeted her, "Good evening, ma." She responded with a low hum, but her eyes did not really leave my room. That made me to feel uncomfortable. Still, I walked past her. As I was heading towards the gate, I passed a young man who was coming in with a small black nylon. He looked at me and smiled politely. "You must be the new tenant," he said. I nodded, "Yes." "You are welcome." "Thank you," and that was all. But even as I walked on, I felt him turn to look back at me. I bought the things I needed and returned before the gate was locked. When I entered the compound again, everywhere was quiet. Some doors were already shut, and the kitchen light was still on because I could hear the sound of plates. I went inside my room and sat down to rest. That was when it happened. I had just bent down to bring out my wrapper from my bag when I suddenly felt it. It was so strong that I froze. It felt like someone was standing right outside my door. Immediately, my heart began to beat faster. I stayed still for a few seconds, then slowly stood up and moved towards the door. For some reasons, I was afraid. I don't even know why. It was just a door, and I was inside my room, but the fear was there. I pulled the door open quickly, and nobody was there. The passage was empty. The bulb outside was dim, but I could see clearly enough, and no one was there. I even stepped outside a bit and looked left and right, but nothing. I told myself maybe I was just tired. But as I closed the door again, that feeling came back, like I was not alone. That night, I did not cook. I was too tired. I just ate biscuits and drank water. Then I spread my mattress and lay down. I expected to sleep quickly because of how stressful my day had been. But sleep did not come. The compound was quiet. That was the strange part. Most compounds are never fully quiet by that time. Then I turned on my side and faced the wall. I closed my eyes, then I heard it. A soft dragging sound. I opened my eyes immediately. The sound came again, like something was being pulled slowly on the floor. My room suddenly felt smaller. I listened carefully. The sound was outside, and it was in the passage. Immediately my heart began to beat so loudly that I could hear it in my ears. I wanted to look outside, but I couldn't move. The sound reached my door. Then it stopped. Then I held my breath to be sure of the sound. But yet nothing. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy headache. For a moment, I even wondered if I had imagined everything. But when I opened my door, the woman from the low stool was already outside again. And the first thing she asked me was, "You heard something in the night, right?" I froze. I looked at her. She looked at me. Then she said quietly, "Just be careful in this compound." And she walked away. That was the moment fear entered my heart properly. Because how did she know? And what exactly was I supposed to be careful about? That morning, I tried to act like nothing happened. But the truth is, Something had already changed inside me. The woman's words kept repeating in my head. I just stood there for a few seconds, then went back inside my room. I told myself, just calm down, you are just overthinking. After a while, I picked my bucket and headed to the tap. As I stepped outside, the compound was already active. People were busy, some were sweeping, some were washing clothes. A few people were in the backyard spreading clothes on the line. Everything looked normal, and that made me to be even more confused. Because if something really happened last night, why was everyone acting like nothing happened? As I walked towards the tap, I noticed something. I saw a man fetching water without a footwear. At first, I ignored it. Maybe he just stepped out quickly. But then another woman joined. She too was barefoot. And immediately I became uncomfortable because earlier that morning I saw that same woman wearing slippers. So why did she remove it? But I didn't ask questions. Instead, I quietly turned back and returned to my room. Something told me, watch first, don't rush. Later that morning, I went to the kitchen to prepare breakfast because I was very hungry. When I got there, a few people were already cooking. One woman smiled at me. You are the new girl, right? Yes, ma, I nodded. You are welcome, she said. Thank you, ma. Another man added, my name is Kunle. If you need anything, just ask me. I nodded and said thank you. Everything felt normal again. After the greetings, I started boiling water. But this time, I paid attention to everything. The cupboards, the way people handled their food, the way they spoke. And after cooking, I noticed something. Nobody carried their food away. They all placed their pot inside the cupboard, locked it and then left. Just like that. And I stood there with a plate in my hand like someone that was confused. That was when one woman noticed me. You no go keep your own here? She asked, and I forced a smile. I will come back, but deep down, I had already decided something. I told myself that I was not going to keep my food there. So I took my food to my room, closed my door and sat down. As I was eating, I heard a knock. My heart jumped. I stood up immediately, walked to the door and opened it. It was the young man from yesterday. He smiled. Good morning. Hope you slept well. I hesitated. Yes. He looked at me carefully like he was studying my face. My name is Tunde, he said. I stay 2 rooms from yours. My name is Amara, I replied. You will get used to this place. Something about that sentence did not sit well with me. Before I could respond, he added, just follow the rules and you will be fine. There was it again. Rules. Everybody kept talking about rules, but nobody was explaining properly. After he left, I sat on my bed quietly and I was thinking. That was when I remembered I've not fetched water. I picked my bucket again. As I got there, nobody was around. I placed my bucket under the tap and opened it, but water did not rush out. I frowned. Maybe they did not pump water, I said to myself. I adjusted the tap again. Still nothing came out. Then suddenly, I heard a voice. Remove your slippers. I froze. My heart skipped. I turned around quickly, but nobody was there. The place was empty. I stood still for a moment, trying to understand what I just heard. Maybe it was from another compound. I bent down again and opened the tap. Yet nothing. Then the voice came for the second time. Remove your slippers. This time it was clearer. Remove your slippers before you fetch water. My hands began to shake. I stood up slowly and turned around again. Still nobody was there. And that made me to be more scared. But something inside me said, just try it. Slowly I removed my slippers, placed them beside me, then I opened the tap and water rushed out immediately. I jumped back in surprise because now I knew something was wrong. This was not normal. And it was not a coincidence. I quickly filled my bucket, wore my slippers, and rushed back to my room. As I entered, I locked the door immediately. My heart was still beating fast. I sat down slowly, trying to understand everything. The rules, the silence, the footsteps, the cupboard, the tap. It was all connected, but how and why? That was when it hit me. This was not just a normal compound. Something was controlling everything. And slowly, I was beginning to see it. That night, I made a decision that I was going to find out the truth, even if it meant breaking the rules, and to worsen the situation. I could not sleep. No matter how I turned on my bed, sleep refused to come. My mind was too full. Everything that had happened since I entered that compound kept playing in my head. The silence, the footsteps, the rule, the tap. It did not make sense, but somehow I knew it was all connected. I checked the time on my phone. It was 11:45 p.m. Everywhere was quiet again. So I covered myself with my wrapper and closed my eyes. I tried to force myself to sleep. And that was when I heard another voice. It was very low, like people whispering. My eyes opened immediately. I sat up slowly and listened carefully. The voices were not coming from outside the door. They were coming from the kitchen side. My heart started beating faster. I remembered clearly the kitchen was supposed to be locked by 10:30 p.m. So who was inside? I stood up quietly. For a few seconds I hesitated. "Don't go," a small voice inside me said. But another voice said, "If you don't find out now, you may never know." Slowly I moved towards my door. I opened it gently. The passage was dark. Only one dim bulb was on. I stepped out carefully, and immediately my heart started beating fast. And too many questions ran through my mind. What if? I shook it off immediately, and I started walking closely towards the kitchen. The closer I got, the clearer the voices became. They were not normal conversations. They sounded like chanting. It was low, steady, and strange. My whole body began to feel cold. When I got close enough, I noticed something. The kitchen door was not fully closed. There was a small opening, and light was coming out from inside. My heart was pounding. I bent down slightly and peeped through the opening. What I saw made my entire body freeze. The landlady was inside, but she was not alone. There was another woman with her, a tall woman. Her back was facing me, but something about her did not look normal. Her dressing was strange, flowing, dark. The landlady was opening the cupboards one by one, bringing out pots of food, placing them on the floor. Then the other woman began to speak. Her voice was deep, not like a normal voice. She said something slowly. "As they eat, they belong." My heart started racing. The landlady responded, "None of them will leave." My eyes filled with tears. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The woman continued, "Their efforts will feed you. Their blessings will be yours." I covered my mouth quickly. My whole body was shaking. Then suddenly, the landlady opened my cupboard and paused. "There is nothing here," she said. Her voice changed. The other woman turned slightly. "Then she is not yet under you," she said. And immediately my heart dropped. "She will be," the landlady replied quickly. "I have been watching her." I froze completely. Watching me? Since when? The other woman said something that made my blood run cold. "Be careful, she is still away." I did not understand fully, but I knew it was not good. Then suddenly the woman stopped talking. Everywhere became quiet. Then she said, "Wait." My heart stopped. "We are not alone here." My legs bent weak. I stepped back slowly. My breathing became heavy. I did not wait. I turned and ran quickly to my room. I entered and locked the door immediately. My whole body was shaking. I couldn't even cry because now everything was clear. The rules were not ordinary, the food was not ordinary, the water was not ordinary. Everything in that compound was controlled, and the people living there were not free. That was when I started crying unknowingly. That night, I did not sleep at all. I just sat on my bed and waiting for morning. Very early the next morning, before anyone could come out, I packed my small bag. I just packed what I could carry. My mind was already made up. Immediately the gate opened, I rushed out. I did not even greet anybody. I did not look back. I just kept walking. My legs were shaking, but I did not stop. When I got to the main road, I slowed down and stood in one place to rest. That was when tears started coming out because I did not know where I was going to. But one thing was sure, I was not going back there. I went straight to the agent's office. Luckily, he was there. When he saw me, he smiled. "Ah, madam, how far? Hope you are enjoying your new place." I looked at him for a moment. I did not even know what to say. "I want to leave, sir," I said. His smile disappeared immediately. "Leave? Why?" he asked. "I just want to leave," I replied immediately. "Please help me get another place." He looked at me. "Did anything happen?" I said no. "I just don't like the place," he sighed. "Madam, you signed agreement." My heart dropped. "What agreement?" I asked. He looked surprised. "You did not read it?" My body went cold. He brought out a file, opened it and pointed to a part. "You must stay there for at least 1 year. No refund." My head started spinning. 1 year? I repeated. He nodded. "If you leave now, you lose your money." That was when tears filled my eyes, because that money was the only money I had. "So there is no way?" I asked quietly. He shook his head. "You have to stay." At that moment, I felt trapped, like I had entered something I could not come out of. I left his office with tears because I did not know where to go. I just walked until I found a small place to sit down in a bus stop. I sat down quietly and I cried silently because I did not know what to do anymore. That was when someone called my name, "Amara." I looked up and it was Mrs. Ifoma, my former neighbor. I stood up quickly. "Ma." She hugged me immediately. "What happened? Why are you crying?" she asked. I hesitated. Then I said slowly, "Ma, I think I made a big mistake." She looked worried. "What kind of mistake?" I took a deep breath and told her everything. Everything I saw, everything I heard, everything I felt. But as I was talking, her face changed from concern to shock and then to fear. When I finished, she held my hand tightly. "You cannot go back there," she said immediately. My heart sank. "But I don't have a choice," I replied. "I signed an agreement." She shook her head. "No, this is not ordinary." Then she said she knew someone that could help me. I looked at her. "Who?" I asked. She stood up. "Come with me." Then we entered the bus. After some time, we stopped in front of a church. But as I stood there, I felt something again. That same feeling, like someone was watching me. My body became tense immediately. "Ma," I said slowly, "I don't feel comfortable here." She held my hand. "Come, don't be afraid." We started walking towards the entrance. Then suddenly, I felt it strong. I turned, and that was when I saw the woman I saw in the kitchen. "She's here," I whispered. "Who?" Mrs. Ivoma asked. "The woman. She followed me here." "How did she find me?" Then Mrs. Ifoma took me inside the church. But my heart was still racing. Mrs. Ifoma held my hand. "Calm down," she said. "I already called him." "Called who?" I asked. Before she could answer, a man walked in. He was calm, but the moment he looked at me, I felt it. He did not ask many questions. He just said, "You went to a place you were not meant to enter." My eyes filled with tears immediately because that was the truth. He continued, "But you were not there by mistake." I froze. "What do you mean?" I asked. He looked at me deeply. "You were sent there to expose it." My heart skipped. Expose it? Me? At that moment, I did not fully understand what the man meant when he said that I was sent there. But one thing was clear, I could not run away anymore. If I left it like that, others would still suffer. And somehow, that did not sit well with me. The man looked at me again. "Are you ready?" he asked. I hesitated. Fear was still inside me, but I nodded, yes. He turned immediately. "Let's go." Just like that. No long talk, no delay. We stepped out of the church. I was so scared because inside me, I knew they were already aware of me. But still we went. When we got close to the compound, the man stopped. He looked inside quietly, then he shook his head slowly. "Too many people are trapped here," he said. My heart became heavy. So we entered. Immediately something felt different. The air was heavy. People were gathered in the middle of the compound. There was noise and confusion. Tunde was lying on the floor and people were pouring water on him, trying to wake him up. "Move," the man said calmly. As he stepped forward, everywhere became quiet. Even the landlady came out. The moment she saw him, her face changed. "Who brought you here?" she shouted. Immediately, I stepped back in fear. "She did not bring me here," the man replied calmly. "I came because today everything ends." The compound went silent. The landlady laughed, but it was not a normal laugh. "You think you can stop me?" she said. Her eyes changed. For the first time, I saw it clearly. She was not normal. The pastor closed his eyes and started praying. His voice was calm but strong. And something in the atmosphere changed immediately. People began to shift. Some held their heads, while some looked confused. It was like something was breaking already. Suddenly, the same mysterious woman appeared from nowhere. She rushed forward angrily. But before she could get close, she fell. Nobody touched her. People screamed. The landlady shouted loudly. Her body started shaking and immediately she fell to the ground. Right in front of everyone, her body began to change. The woman that looked strong started looking weak and old. Fear spread everywhere. The man pointed at her. "Speak," he said. At first, she refused, but her body kept shaking. Then suddenly she cried out, "I used them." Everywhere was silent. Everybody froze. "I used them," she repeated. "What do you mean?" Someone shouted. She cried, "As long as they eat from that kitchen, they belong to me. I take their blessings, their progress, and everything." Tears rolled down my face, because now everything made sense. "The water," she continued. "When they fetch it barefoot, I take what is meant for them." People started crying, and some were shouting. Then the man of God raised his voice and said, "Enough!" Everywhere became quiet again. He continued praying. Slowly, people started coming back to themselves, like they were waking up from sleep, confused and weak. The man turned to them. "You are free now." Tears filled many eyes. Some people fell to the ground. Some started thanking God. Some just stood there in shock. The kitchen was opened and everything inside it was poured away. The tap was destroyed. People did not want anything connected to that place again. Soon, the compound became empty. People started leaving. As for me, I stood there quietly because I knew if I had ignored the signs, I would have become part of it. Days later, the compound was sealed and nobody lives there anymore. Till today, I still think about it sometimes. And one thing remains in my mind. Not every place that looks peaceful is safe. Not every rule is ordinary. And sometimes when people feel wrong, listen.